Decision. I'd like to welcome in trial lawyer and legal analyst Richard Schoenstein. Richard, great to see you again. So we just heard from Rich McHugh there. We all know the power and influence of the mayor of New York City. How unusual is what's happening right now, and what do you think we can expect the judge to look at today?
Well, it's unprecedented on a number of levels. I mean, I don't remember a sitting mayor being under federal indictment for essentially bribery and related crimes. So you have that. Then you have the retraction of the indictment by the new federal administration. And you have a judge who I think wants to hear more about it and wants there to be a record, a public record of why this case is being dropped. And that's why there's going to be a hearing. Presumably there will be a reporter, there'll be a court reporter, there'll be a record made where the prosecutor's office has to explain why this case is no longer being pursued.
So Governor Kathy Hochul is saying, another part of all of this, that she's not going to make a decision until after today's hearing. Do you believe we could see her use her power to remove Mayor Adams from office?
So I think it's possible, but I think it's unlikely for two reasons. Number one, she's got problems right now as a Democratic mayor of New York dealing with the new federal administration. And this might not want to be a problem. She might not want to take on this problem because she's got other stuff. She just had a lawsuit filed against New York by the DOJ. She has other things to deal with. That's reason number one. And reason number two, as Rich said, there is an election coming up in June. There is a primary. There is an opportunity for the public to take Eric Adams out of office, even if she won't do it and even if he won't do it.
All right. So, yeah, the primary coming up in June. So basically, 3 months and some weeks away. Richard, what type of precedent do you think is being set no matter what is ultimately decided?
I think this is horrible precedent. I think where we are right now is terrible precedent. These were decisions of career prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office, including a 13-year-old veteran who clerked for Justice Roberts. I mean, these weren't partisan decisions. These prosecutors only pursue cases if they think they have evidence that merits prosecution and they think they're correct under the law. And as a general matter, the prosecutors, the line prosecutors at offices like this stay the same from administration to administration because the daily conduct of justice is not political. This was not a political prosecution. This was a prosecution on evidence. And to have a new administration sweep in with a new agenda and take a prosecution off the table, it's a horrible precedent.
So talk more about, we've seen protests, we heard cheers out there, but we certainly heard boos as well. We've also seen now resignations of 4 of the mayor's deputy mayors, as well as the original prosecutor of this case who has stepped down. Just talk about, Richard, the optics of this with lawyers resigning.
The optics are terrible because it looks like he's lost the support of his office. It looks like the prosecutors who wanted to bring this case are not in line with this decision at all. And by the way, we have very good prosecutors, very experienced prosecutors who now have taken themselves out of that incredibly important office in New York, in the federal government, where they should be there prosecuting crimes. They have to be replaced. So it looks terrible, to your point about the optics, but it also is really bad. It's causing a lot of bad impact. And that's my fundamental thing about this. Eric Adams should have resigned the minute he was indicted, because that indictment was going to have a negative effect on his administration, and it is having a negative effect on his administration and on the city of New York. And whether he's guilty or not, he has to be accountable for that.
Yeah, and again, the mayor is doubling down, says he is not going anywhere. In the meantime, Reverend Al Sharpton is saying that there's a double standard for Mayor Adams. I'd like to listen to part of what he said.
Okay.
The only reason that the governor has to make a decision to do something or not do something that has not been done in 235 years is because there was a double standard used on Eric Adams' case.
All right. So, Richard, what do you make of those comments? I mean, from your legal expertise here, is there a double standard from your perspective for Mayor Eric Adams?
Honestly, I don't know what he means by double standard. I read the indictment back when it was made. It sets forth facts that would support a conviction on the charges that were brought. That looks like Adams and his office were trading favors for money and for campaign contributions and illegally pooling campaign contributions. So that's genuine misconduct. It's important misconduct. And the trading favors, if proven by the evidence. And Nicole, it all had to go to trial, right? He has the presumption of innocence. He has the right to a jury. They were going to have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they couldn't do it, they couldn't do it. But if they could, there's no double standard. That's criminal activity.
Last question for you. If you had to predict, Richard, what do you think comes out of today's hearing? And do you think ultimately that Adams will be removed from office?
But number one, I think the judge is going to allow the charges to be withdrawn because I don't really see what the alternative is. I mean, I've heard people speculate that you could appoint a special prosecutor. I don't know that anyone would do that when the U.S. Attorney's Office has said now it doesn't want to bring the claims. You can't force somebody to prosecute. You can't force somebody to prosecute well. So I think this case is being dropped. As I said, I don't think Governor Hochul will remove him from office, but I get a vote in June, and I intend to use it.
All right. Well, we will certainly see what happens. Richard Schoenstein, great talking to you as always. Thank you.
Good to be here. Thanks.
All right, now it's a war